listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from our respective homes in Chicago. My name is Matt K, and with me is
Rye the Movie Guy, and with us is KP.
Hello, how are you boys tonight?
Wonderful. This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, 2 reviews, The Color Purple and Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom. And The Lost Kingdom, I guess, is the actual title.
Who cares?
Well, we're going to get to it. And helping us with those reviews and covering our top 5 favorite scenes of 2023 is Mark Dujsik.
Yes, Mark Dujsik is back. One of the most prolific film critics, I'd say, in the world. Certainly in Chicago, definitely the nation, maybe the world.
It is hard to book Mark on a podcast because he's usually watching a movie. So it's difficult to get him to actually clear 2 hours to do a podcast, you know?
Yeah, and we're not joking. We'll talk about Mark's stats when he enters.
Absolutely. Plus, I guess there's going to be trivia this week, Matt?
Yeah, I flipped the script and wrote some trivia. You will be taking Mark on in 2023 movie trivia.
Oh, my God. I love it.
Now, I'm going
nothing
to
better than crushing Mark.
Put in the caveat that these are not necessarily questions about films that came out in 2023, but they do relate somehow.
Interesting. Wow. I love when Matt puts on his thinking cap and comes up with some kind of creative trivia game.
Yep.
So last week on the show, we did our top 10 films of the year, and we said when we went to the fish tank that KP was in the fish tank. And believe it or not, Matt, we heard from quite a few jawheads. One of them, my cousin Andrew, simply texted me right away, KP, did I miss something? What's going on over there in Cinemajaw Studios? Neil out in Bartlett also wrote in talking about us referring to KP. And I said, well, the episode with Brian it's jam-packed. How long was the runtime on that thing?
It was
2
2
hours, 50 minutes, 2 hours. It's a long podcast.
Just over 2.
So I said, well, when we have a little bit more time so that we don't brush over the topic, we'll let it breathe. And we'll do it this week. And I'll let Phil, formerly Phil, now KP, explain. KP, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much. It's an honor. I'm just in it's cliche to say I'm in a transitionary period of my life, but that's what it is. I'm in the process of KP is a much more gender neutral name, so I prefer it that way. We're also going to be using they, she pronouns as we're going. KP is short for Kira Phyllis. Phil is still fine, but it's just not preferred. So yeah, I mean, other than that, I'm still me. Nothing changes.
Exactly.
Just what you hear change. There is changes, actually. There's a lot changed.
It's it's a new name, man. You know? I like it.
KP, it's also still Emma Stone month. Now that we've tackled the KP, let's tackle the Emma Stone fact.
You know what? And we should mention, we're on Zoom this week, which has not happened in a long time, which is exactly why I am so remiss I cannot push my button. Where our audio clips are gone right now.
Yes.
Our live soundboard is not at my fingertips, and it breaks my heart because, when better to use our Emma Stone clip than when we say we're tackling her?
Absolutely.
That's fine. We're not tackling or physically harming anybody because we are celebrating Emma Stone. And her being one of only 8 actresses to have won an Academy Award for a performance in a musical, which honestly, that sounds kind of low to me, but the other 7 in chronological order: Rita Moreno, Julie Andrews, Barbra Streisand, Liza Minnelli, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Jennifer Hudson, and Anne Hathaway. And when I think about it, it's oh yeah, that is kind of all the big ones.
Those are some heavy hitters.
I agree. She's in good company.
No doubt.
Good fact. I'm sad to say this is our last week celebrating Emma Stone, but maybe we'll get back to her.
Yeah, she'll come around again.
All right, let's get this
every December 2024 Emma Stone month
show into high gear here with our guest Mark Dujsik, film critic, has watched over, as far as my math is concerned, over 540 movies this year. We love to celebrate the year in film with Mark. Mark, welcome back to Cinemajaw.
Thanks for having me back. I had the mute button. I haven't been on Zoom in a while too. I'm sorry about the sound effects. Also, you're welcome for not having the sound effects, depending on which side you're on this debate that I can see unfolding in front of me. Yeah, it's great to be back. That's all I can say right now. I don't know where we're going first. I do know where we're going.
Yes, but I opened it up last week when we had Brian Talrico on. I asked about the state of film of 2023, and since this is sort of a recap episode and celebrating the year, let's go with that. What did you think of the year overall, and did you feel it was sort of a turning point, getting away from sort of the big, let's say, comic book movies and franchise into a bit more originality?
Thought you were going to talk about the real world stuff happening. That we're getting over that at least too. But I think Aquaman numbers, early numbers, I know we're going to talk about it later, came out today and they're not looking good. And I don't know what's going to happen with comic book movies. It seems potentially going the way of the Western. It's just one of those fads that lasted for a while, and we're going to be moving on. And that's okay, because this year we had Barbie and Oppenheimer one weekend just dominate the box office in a way that we haven't seen since the pandemic. So that was refreshing, and it was encouraging to see people going out to the theater and seeing movies. I think studios are getting better understanding the importance of the movie theater, even if certain streamers are kind of clutching to the idea that their platform is the only way it should go. I think that a lot of them, Amazon has MGM now, so they're getting films out into the actual physical locations more. Apple TV with Killers of the Flower Moon had, a pretty good run with that. So I'm hoping we'll see more of that. And I don't know, it's just good to see people going back to the movies and realizing that, the streamers are good, VOD is good, but go see the movie in the theater if you can at first. And those studios, you can make money that way and hold on to the streaming release, the digital on-demand release till later. Anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting to see all of this in flux right now. I don't know where it's going to land, but it's been a wild last couple of months, really, to just see everybody recovering and trying to figure out what's going on with all of this.
Video stores are coming back, and I'm talking about VHS.
Please.
It's coming back.
Please bring those back.
I mean, it's never going to be where it was, right? But we're going to see, you could drive around and find a record store here in Chicago fairly easily, full of vinyl. Same thing. I think we're going to see that return. Even when we did an episode over at the Alamo Draft House, they have VHS rentals. It's not unheard of. It's nice to see things kind of the pendulum coming around, Interesting.
It is. So I mentioned, Mark, 540 plus movies. Do I have that correct?
I just logged onto Letterboxd and looked at my I'm done. No, I'm not done. I'm sorry, I lied. I have one or two left for the year just before I run my top 10 list. Just to make sure. I know, I'm sorry. Just one or two. That's it. But some stuff has been released in 2023, but it's not getting a wider release until next year. But I just want to make sure I'm missing out on anything that's going to end up on my top 10 list before the year's out. So it'll end below 550.
Mark, wow. with that many movies under your belt in a single calendar year, have you ever watched something and regretted it? I mean, said oh my God, what a waste of time. I mean, you must see some really crappy movies.
Yes. I don't want to name names officially. But the ones that I've skipped reviewing were typically the ones I've watched it and then said, I have nothing to say to this. Anything I could say about it would just be unnecessarily mean to a movie that no one is going to see, that no one knows where it's at, that no one is going to realize it exists. And so I just am no, that's okay. I don't need to talk about a serial killer thriller with Sean Astin in it. Don't need to talk about that one.
Whoa. I missed the serial killer thriller with Sean Astin.
Jeez.
We got to talk about this after the show.
And now I'm wondering, was it Sean Astin or did I imagine that? Because it's been so long. But there've been a couple that I just watched it and it just didn't make any sense to me to write about it. And so I logged it on Letterboxd, added a rating for anyone who was curious about it, and just called it a day on those. But
there's some,
yeah.
There's some because I follow Mark on Letterboxd, and I'll come across something that he's logged on, and I love to go into the movie and see how many other people have actually logged the movie on Letterboxd. And Mark is sometimes in there with like 3 other people, 2 other users.
Yeah,
there may
one's
be
the
somewhere
director.
you're the first.
The star, the director, and
that's
Mark
weird.
Dujsik.
Yeah. It happens. It's weird.
It's
The weirdest ones are the ones that aren't even on Letterboxd yet. And so I have to run over to the movie database, which is, their version of the Internet Movie Database where they pull everything from and actually add all the information the distributor didn't add yet.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
happened a couple times.
Boy.
So we got feedback off of the last episode, came to us via Twitter, and this ties into a question I wanted to ask Mark. They wrote in and said, hey, awesome podcast. I got a follow-up question for you and the Cinemajaw crew. What's your favorite non-2023 film of the year? Meaning like first time you watched a movie that didn't come out necessarily in this year. And he goes on to say that it's both Stalker and Cries and Whispers were his favorite watches that didn't come out in this year. My question to Mark is, do you watch anything? Do you have time to watch anything that didn't come out in 2023 if you're seeing that many new titles?
Yes and no. And I try to, and I don't log those on Letterboxd, and so I couldn't tell you what I watched first time around this year. I know there have been a couple. I'm hoping that like this week is going to be pretty dead. I don't think anything comes out on the 29th, so that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be, in addition to playing video games, I'm going to be watching some movies for enjoyment. And I wish I could answer that question, but I can't think of anything that I watched for the first time. But I know I did fit in a few, probably more than a few. I could say probably a few dozen over the course of the year that weren't, coming out this year.
Sure. I always feel like I'm playing catch up. Like when we say we celebrate somebody on the podcast, it's like, oh, this gives me an excuse to watch, said movie. I actually bought Wild at Heart, the Nick Cage film. I had never seen that movie, and I forget. It wasn't streaming anywhere, so I got it on Blu-ray, and I have not watched it yet, but I plan to before the end of the year because I got some time on my hands, so I'm gonna catch up on some movies.
So good. Wild at Heart is really good. That's one of my top lynches, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's a good one.
You heard we're celebrating Emma Stone. Throwing you a softball here. What is your favorite Emma Stone movie? And it's okay to say Poor Things because I'm a huge fan, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, I think Poor Things might be her best film and might be her best performance. Although I really love her in The Favorite, and I thought she was fantastic in La La Land. She's fantastic in a lot of things. But Poor Things she's doing something completely different. She's great at comedy in terms of just, all the jokes, all the slapstick and everything, and she gets to channel all of that into this fantastic role. This is like a once in a lifetime character, I think, that anybody could get to play. She just puts everything into it. So I think Poor Things might be at the top for both film and performance from her, from where I'm sitting right now.
I was a huge fan. Obviously, my number 2 film of the year. So I'm right with you on this one, Mark. For the jawheads that want to check out all of these reviews that you're writing, because there are a lot, where should we send them online, Mark?
MarkReviewsMovies.com. I hope that's easy enough to remember. I'm at Mark Reviews on X, formerly Twitter. I hate saying it, but I'm on there. I'm on Letterboxd at Mark Dujsik, just my name, Dujsik is how you spell it. If you want to hear me talk weekly, in addition to all the written reviews, the Roger and Me podcast, which I co-host with the host, Brett Arnold. Every week we're covering between 8 and more movies every week that Brett gets to watch too. And yeah, I know. So this will be, just a heads up, this will be the 3rd time that I'm reviewing both The Color Purple and Aquaman. So I hope I have some new things to say.
Let's find out. Yeah.
Impressive. All right. Well, speaking of The Color Purple, the novel The Color Purple was published in 1982 by Alice Walker. It was turned into a movie by Steven Spielberg in 1985. And then in 2005, it was turned into a Broadway musical where it ran from '05 to '08. This latest film, directed by Blitz Bazawule, is an adaptation of the Broadway musical. We hit the theater to see if the jump from the stage to the screen was the right move.
Oh, Miss Celie!
You must ain't got no kinfolk around these parts.
All I had was my sister. She was the only one ever loved me. I'm gonna hold my head up. I'm gonna put my shoulders back. It's time for you to see the world.
There's gonna be some changes made.
Put it on. This ain't me. Hush. We need to look like we belong. Let's see the smile and color.
Sweet and loving God.
The plot has stayed the same. Torn apart from her sister and her children, Celie faces many hardships in life, including an abusive husband. With support from a sultry singer named Shug Avery, as well as her stepdaughter, she ultimately finds extraordinary strength in the unbreakable bonds of a new kind of sisterhood. This adaptation is filled to the brim with powerful musical numbers and fine performances. I have to be honest here, I have not read the novel, nor have I seen the 1985 film. This is one of my Spielberg blind spots. Seeing as this is my first Color Purple, I was impressed. The cast is fantastic, led by Fantasia, of all people, from American Idol fame, who plays Celia, and Coleman Domingo, who plays Evil Mister. Boy, is he good here. My screening was packed with people who knew the musical numbers and were singing and applauding throughout, which made it rather exciting. I like how the musical numbers were staged inside the real world that these people inhabit. That felt very natural. The ending moved me quite a bit. Mark, did you find The Color Purple as enjoyable as I did?
I did not. I have not read the Walker novel, but I have seen the Spielberg film, and I don't think the musical is a good idea. I don't think turning this material into a musical is the best idea. It is so jarring to watch this woman, this teenage girl who becomes a woman, be caught up in this cycle of abuse, starting with her father, to this man that she's essentially given away as chattel to be married to, and be abused physically and sexually by both of these men, have children taken away from her. And then right in the middle of that, you get this very upbeat toe tapping song, and it is so jarring. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to be interested to see when you get around to the Spielberg film, because I know Brett, the co-host on the show I talked about, had not seen it until after seeing the musical too, and he was confounded by how many changes and how many omissions were made just from the first movie adaptation. Because I don't see the story here. I don't think the story is kept intact by having all these musical numbers either. You don't feel the progression of the character, although I think that Fantasia is quite good at filling in the gaps that the screenplay has for her. She's really good at showing that evolution of that character. But the movie itself doesn't have it there, and so it doesn't feel earned. It's trying to tell you how this is all going to end at the start by having these upbeat numbers. And so by the end, you're like, okay, well, we got through all of that, and I guess it's all okay. I'm really torn on this one, just because I think the cast is quite good for the most part. I found some of the songs catchy, but I'm just sitting there the entire time thinking, don't really care that the music is catchy, and I don't care that the cast is really good at selling it, because it's just a bad idea at the core. That's where I'm at with it.
Well, it seems obviously that it must have been quite popular to have a good run, and then to be, even in the conversation for picking up a Broadway musical and turning it into a movie. It has to have its fan base. So there's got to be people out there that are, of different opinion here and say, well, no, I see why the music works in to some degree here. You're right. In some parts, it is a little bit jarring that it's such an upbeat song inside this rather dark tale that we're seeing. So, but again, probably because I hadn't seen the Spielberg take on it, I was just along for the ride, thinking this is the tone of the movie that it should have, because this is my first time seeing it.
Yeah, it's interesting because Spielberg, especially around this point in his career, gets accused of toning down material and sentimentalizing material, and that's true of the color purple. You can, even without having read the novel, you could see where things are kind of made a little easier for the audience. But man, I mean, compared to this, neutered, sentimentalized, those aren't even getting at, I think, what this musical is doing to the material. It's just so odd to me. It's just such an odd choice. And you're right. Obviously, the musical has some fans because a couple of Fantasia and Danielle Brooks, I believe. Yeah, Danielle Brooks were both from the Broadway revival about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the musical has already had its revival period. It's already gone through that. So it has its audience. It has its fans. I have been going to the theater a couple times where some previews are showing, and those are booked. They're full. All those sneak previews of the movie are full. This is going to do pretty well for a musical at Christmas time. It's hard to tell what that means, but
yeah,
I was not sold on it. I was not sold on it as a concept.
I mean, at the screening that I was in, I definitely felt like I was the one that didn't know the material, because, like I said, there were definitely some women right behind me that I could hear them singing along to some of the songs. Like, oh, okay, this has a built-in audience that I'm not familiar with. I had not seen the musical on the Broadway stage. So I was like, man, I didn't know that it had such a following. So from a production value, I do want to say, I think it's going to get some award recognition just on like costumes, and some of the technical awards, because it's a beautiful looking film, I must say. So I think that needs to be mentioned. There's a fun cameo in there, paying tribute to the original Color Purple. So overall, I'm okay on this one. I'm recommending it, but it sounds like Mark is not on board.
Yeah, I am not. I will give you, it does look good. It does look good as a very glossy adaptation of a stage musical. There's some striking lighting, like the juke joint at night, with all the light pouring through, the moonlight pouring through the cracks in the walls. That looks really good and looks fantastic with the silhouettes of the dancers. There's a lot of that stuff going on. But again, why is that the focus of the story? A woman who's going through abuse and trying to get herself out of it and learning how to become herself. They don't mesh well in my head, and I could not get over that.
So we like to do jaw-dropping moments, something maybe we haven't brought up, and we need to mention Shug Avery, played by Taraji P. Henson. She was also excellent. I mean, I'm talking very highly of Fantasia, but if I had a second person that I want to highlight, it has to be her. She was another maybe Academy Award, at least nomination, I think, could be coming her way. That strong of a performance. You like that, Mark, or not on the same page?
Yeah, I did. I liked a lot of the cast. I think Henson might be one of the weaker. She's still strong, but I'm just saying one of the weaker performances there. But they're all strong across the board. But she didn't make quite as much of an impression as Brooks, Domingo. Corey Hawkins is really good as the son of Mr. The husband. Halle Bailey.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Halle Bailey.
Everybody's socks off. Yeah, she's not in it that much, but she has a song in here that's, it's going to get applause like her big number in Little Mermaid got.
What a voice!
She's got talent. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing what she does next. It was good to see her kind of carry that initial part of the movie with that big song that she has, and to see that it's more than just the Disney machine pushing someone. Although she was very good in Little Mermaid. But it's nice to see that she does have more to her than just getting cast in a Disney movie, becoming popular from that. No, she's got the range to go somewhere, I think.
That's good.
It's good to see.
Absolutely. For a movie poster quote, I went with, even without Oprah on screen, The Color Purple is still a winner. I went a solid 3 Jaws. I'm recommending the color purple. We're on a 4-jaw scale here, Mark. Where are you at?
You're in my wheelhouse with the rating scale, so that's good. What poster tagline? What were they thinking? And I'm giving it 2 stars just because, again, from a you are completely right. From a production value, from a performance level, it's right on the money. Just what are you doing? Go get it.
The Color Purple is playing in theaters now everywhere. Do check it out, Jawheads, and let us know what you think. Shoot us a tweet or an X. We are at Cinemajaw, or our email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. Well, we like to celebrate with Mark our favorite scenes of the year. I actually wrote down, man, I must have had about 25 originally written down, and I tried to squeeze it down to 5. Matt, did you have a trouble narrowing it down?
Yeah, I did. So I gave myself some parameters. Most, not all, most of the scenes that I chose are not from films that were on my top 10. I just wanted to highlight some other stuff that I thought was interesting this year.
Well done. I had much of the same thought as well. So I veered into it a little bit, but tried to,
Same.
get some more films talked about.
Yeah.
So why don't you get us kicked off, Matt? What do you got at 5?
All right. At number 5, we talk about superhero fatigue and this and that, but I think there is still some juice left to be squeezed out of it. And there was a movie that came out this year that I think is being overlooked and undervalued, and that is Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
I love it.
I walked out of this movie with a great big smile on my face, and I said, I loved that. And a big part of that is the absolutely heavy metal as shit end scene where Lucy Liu is flying on a freaking dragon into
awesome.
the baseball stadium. I think they're in Philly, right? I can't remember what city they're in. And they have a battle with Shazam fighting this dragon with this like magical staff that he's trying to stab the dragon. It's just so metal. I was like, oh my God, this looks like the cover of like an Iron Maiden album or something. All we need is like Eddie sitting there like in the stands. Loved that scene unapologetically. One of the coolest things I saw on the screen this year. And I just watched it again before this podcast to make sure it is good as I remember. It's great.
That's awesome. I'll be honest, I even forgot that movie came out this year. So you mentioning that is already a win. And now you talking about that scene, we were sitting next to each other. And I remember when we came out of the movie, we talked about the ending. We're like, damn, that was fun. It was wild.
It was good. That's
Good
my number
stuff.
5.
I was like, wait a minute. Do the 3 of us actually like Shazam! Fury of the Gods?
I guess so. I was high on it.
What? Wait, what is going on here? I didn't know there were 3 people in the world who liked it, but apparently all 3 of us are in this Zoom meeting right now to talk about. I have problems with it for sure. It's nowhere near as good as the first Shazam, which I think is great, but it has some fun moments. And I mean, I forgot about the big climax because I was more interested in the family dynamic stuff. But hey, that is definitely if it is as cool as you say it is, and I watch it again, maybe I might like Shazam! Fury of the Gods a little bit more. But I'm shocked. I am shocked that we found 3 people who like
Listen,
Shazam.
I didn't give it 4 stars or anything, but
No, but we were
I didn't
favorable.
either, but
we were favorable, and everybody
Definitely.
else trashed it.
yeah, I liked it. I had a great time.
Cool.
Mark, what do you got at 5?
Nice. Kismet, I have a superhero movie at number 5 too.
Nice.
I know I wasn't expecting this, but here we are. From Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The moment that I realized, oh, this movie is really going to go for it in terms of adjusting the style and keeping up with the style and doing a lot of different things that are beyond what I think Into the Spider-Verse does. And that is the moment that a Renaissance supervillain shows up in the style of a Da Vinci sketch and does a battle with Spider-Gwen. I was completely on board with the film from there on, and it only became even more imaginative and dug into the lore and the aesthetic of comic books, which is I really love this film. And I just thinking about it more, I love it even more and more. But that was the moment, beyond even like the cool, Spider-Gwen world with all the watercolor and just adjusting to all that. I'm like, oh, they're doing something a little unique here. But as soon as Vulture shows up looking like a Da Vinci sketch. The movie had me hooked, and I just was like, "Yep, this is going to do something different. It's going to go beyond what the first film did." And it really did, and it continued to prove it over and over again. But that was the moment. So I call it, what is it, Renaissance supervillain.
I like that.
My number 5.
Nice. None of the scenes from that movie made my top 5, but honorable mention. And I love the scene when Gwen and Miles Morales are talking upside down. I remember sending out a tweet right after seeing it saying, "Hey, got to be considered one of the best shots of the year." Her hair is sticking straight up. Just the imagery in that movie is just fantastic. I love it. 2 masterpieces for Spider-Verse. So good stuff. My number 5 comes from a horror film. I break the mold here and get away from the superheroes for a moment. And I really went for this horror film. Matt, you weren't nearly as high up on it. And it's the movie Talk to Me. And this has the possession where the hand, these kids find this hand. And when you grab hold of the hand, like you're shaking hands with it, and you say the words, "Talk to me," you become possessed. And I think what I liked was early on, we catch a little bit of this being done in like a YouTube video that people are watching on their phone. And you somewhat have the idea that we're talking about possession, but you're still not 100% sure because we haven't seen the whole thing. And so my pick at number 5 is the first possession scene when we actually get into the room and they do the whole through explain it that they can be possessed for X amount of time, and then they have to, snap them out of it. I freaked out. It's tough to do possession well and do it new and kind of fresh, but the way their eyes kind of rolled back, everything about it just scared the hell out of me. Like I really felt that the person being possessed was in grave danger. It didn't look comfortable in any way to be possessed in that room.
What they were it was like a euphoria to them. They were using it as a drug.
Right. But the way the eyes would roll, the whole thing seemed like, it was like, oh my God, something bad's going to happen. And eventually it does. And there goes the movie, and don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. But man, that first possession hooked me. And I was along for the ride the whole way. Mark, did you like this film in general?
Lukewarm on it. I'm on the fence about it. It does start off really strong, and those possession scenes are unnerving at times. I remember I don't want to spoil anything either, but I remember there's one that goes rather bloody by the end of it. That was pretty shocking.
Honorable mentions for me. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But go on.
But yeah, that's good. I just, it didn't hook me by the end. There's just something off about the ending and the metaphor of grief and everything. I don't think it follows through on that, but it does start off really strong in those possession scenes really well in a different way. So
I've come
that's
around
all I got
on
to
it.
add to that one.
I mean, I'll say I've come around on it a little bit because I couldn't quite get it out of my head. I agree with Mark though. I don't think it's as strong as some people seem to think it is, but there's something there. I mean, definitely interesting. Not a bad movie by any stretch.
Did you guys happen to see When Evil Lurks?
Yes.
Okay. I will stop. If anybody has it on their list, you can stop me now.
Yeah, I do not. So you can go ahead.
That's one that does something really neat with possession. That's all I'll say about that one. If you haven't seen that one yet, check it out. When Evil Lurks, it's on Shudder, I believe, now. But
that's a good one.
Thinking about getting a Shudder subscription, actually. All right. Does that swing it back to me? Is that where we're at? Okay.
Yep.
So we are into our number 4s, and I am going with a film that we saw pretty recently. It was a screener that came December. And
go ahead.
The scene in particular, and I wasn't super high on this film, but it's another one that's kind of stuck in my craw, and I can't stop thinking about it. And I think I've finally reframed it into a comedy in my brain. And when she goes into the back room of the pet shop and has a private moment, Natalie Portman poses with her wrist up to her forehead and like goes through the motions of this love affair, this love scene that is happening in her mind, and she's she's pretending like she's alone in the scene, but she's pretending she's with a lover. And it's freaking hilarious. I mean, it's so campy and over the top. I thought it was brilliant. On a second viewing, I watched it again today, and I'm like, Natalie Portman is acting in like 3 different layers here, and that's pretty hard to do. So hats off to her. That's my number 4.
Like I said, I watched it a second time, and I went from kind of confused on how I was supposed to feel about the movie to definitely in my top 20. Didn't quite crack my top 10, but I'm a huge fan of May December. So
Yeah, I really like that film too. I like that scene. I like a lot of other scenes. Another scene from that with Charles Melton up on the roof with the kid.
Yeah, that's a good
that
one.
made an honorable mention for me. That's a fantastic scene. And Melton in general is just I had no clue who he was until I saw this film. He is amazing in that. Portman's amazing. Julianne Moore is amazing. The performances across the board are so great. But yeah, that's a funny scene. And yeah, cool.
we may talk about it again.
Oh.
Little teaser.
Okay. I hope I didn't ruin it with.
No.
Okay, good.
It's
There are
even
so
another
many good
scene.
scenes
I
in
know
it.
there's even another
Yeah.
scene in there I want to highlight. So,
All right.
Mark.
All right. Number 4 is from Anatomy of a Fall. It is the experiment that Daniel, son, does to test out a theory he has about what might have happened to his father and what his father might have gone through. This one, I hate, you know what? I hate that I chose this because I don't want to say what happens because it is one of the most wrenching scenes in that film. And that is a film full of wrenching scenes. What I will say is that a lot of it is this courtroom drama. You get to see how strange the French court system is. You get to see how all of that functions. You get to question whether or not this woman murdered her husband, or maybe it was just an accident, or maybe it was a death by suicide. We don't know. And then the film just kind of takes this little break and it follows the son, and you get to see in a very explicit and visceral in a very visceral way how the trial and how having these questions about his parents have affected him and the way that he thinks about the world and what he needs to do to prove to himself what the truth is. And it is just heartbreaking to watch that unfold and to see the kid realize the consequences of what he has done and what he might have lost in the moment. Yeah, all I'll say is best performance by a dog ever in a movie. So I hope if I've been vague enough and you have seen the film and you're like, what is he talking about? Because courtroom drama does take up a lot of it. I hope that the idea of the dog performing in that scene gives you a clue as to what I was talking about.
Nice pick. A huge fan of that movie. Definitely made my top 10. And the kid is fantastic in there as well.
Yeah.
The dog with the performances and that Sandra Hüller. What a year. She's fantastic in there. So big fan. Definitely check that one out, Jawheads. My number 4 comes from a comedy that we did review for the Patreons on the movie Roundup, and that is Bottoms, which is a high school comedy. Girl Fight Club is started basically with these two girls that actually want to hook up with 2 girls that they both are infatuated with. And it's a very strange comedy. I really went for this thing. At the end is my pick for the scene that I want to highlight. It's the ending of the movie turns into this massive fight scene out on the football field, and it's so over the top, and it goes somewhere where it's like, I can't believe this is what we're watching. It's so damn enjoyable. I know because I sit next to Mark at a lot of screenings. This had to be liked by you, and you had to be laughing, especially at that last fight scene.
Oh yeah, I was laughing a lot during Bottoms. I'm remembering the one gag with the football player who gets kind of vaguely hit with a car and just has that over the top reaction. And I thought, okay, that's the level of parody we're talking. But you are exactly right that by that big brawl on the football field by the end, it goes in directions I did not expect it to. And I was laughing really hard watching that.
Yeah, I meant to rewatch the scene before we hit record on this, and I didn't get around to it because it was just so damn funny. I remember thinking, like, everybody's got to see this, and I hope more people get chance to catch bottoms. Can we throw it in the fish tank, see if it's streaming anywhere there, KP? Definitely one Jawheads to write down and catch bottoms. It's a refreshing comedy, much like how we felt like when Superbad came out and it was like, oh, the comedy's back, you know? It has that kind of vibe to it. I felt that strong for it. So
Nice, good pick. That swings it back to me, I think, and we're in our number threes. I am going with a pick that I guess is probably not surprising, but another movie that I think came, a lot of people enjoyed it, and then it got immediately forgotten. It is Dungeons and Dragons and the Honor Among Thieves, and the scene in particular is the Druid chase scene. The Druid, man, I'm blanking on her name right now. Help me, Mark.
It's Sophia Lillis.
Sophia Lillis, thank you. You'll probably remember her from the It films. She is a druid, which means she can change shape into different animals. And there's this scene that I'm sure there's cuts, but at least for to the untrained eye, it is a cutless scene where she's a squirrel or a rat, and then she's a bird, and then she's a cat running through the houses in this like Dungeons and Dragons city, and it's great. The camera follows her down. What a crazy chase scene. I loved it. It was just so much fun. The whole movie is great. Picking just one scene, difficult, but I had never seen anything quite like that outside of like pure animation. So
yeah,
there you go. D&D.
I was hoping actually that something from the Dungeons and Dragons movie made your list. I thought it might have been the fat dragon that comes out. We had a great laugh with that one with the big fat dragon that comes after him.
Thumberchild. Yeah.
Hysterical. But yes, I love the Druid chase scene. If I had to say sort of a technical marvel with how fast changing shapes, as you say, and doing it in a creative way to, like you say, a cat through the house or, you know, a deer to jump over the fence and, you know, so on and so forth. It was crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, it was really cool. She's just like an owl going down the chimney and yeah, lots of fun.
Good pick.
How did that movie get overlooked? Was it the Dungeons and Dragons label? Was that it? That people are like, oh, that's the nerd thing. Like, that movie is a blast. And I don't know how it got overlooked. It still boggles my mind. I think it did a lot better once it hit streaming on Paramount Plus because people were like, "Oh, I'll try that out." I was kind of skeptical about it, but man, that should have been a big hit. It's so much fun and it's so accessible. You don't need to know Dungeons and Dragons to
right?
understand it. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I knew exactly what's going on every moment, and I had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, there was like some behind the scenes kerfuffle with the whole D&D fan base, but I won't get into it now. That could have harmed it a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. Why
it was made for mass audiences. It was made for mass audiences. It doesn't matter what the niche audience of D&D players think.
But to your point,
it should have been a big hit.
To your point, Mark, though, it was made for mass audiences. But then with the title Dungeons and Dragons, you know that people who don't play Dungeons and Dragons, even though we did our job, me and Matt talked about, hey, go see this movie. You don't have to worry about knowing the rules of the game. But I'm sure people still stayed away from it just because of the title.
That's a shame.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully it did well enough to get a sequel. So I'd be down for another game.
Adventure.
Thank you.
Mark, what do you got at number 3?
I also have a chase scene. For me, it is the Rome chase in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which apparently won't have a Part 2, but it will have a Part 2, just not with the Part 2 title. Okay. I think this is top tier Mission Impossible.
What?
That's where I'm at with it. I think it's one of the best in the series. And you know why? Because every single action sequence I could think of in that film could have made this list. Every one of them is a banger. The cat and mouse game in the airport is aces in terms of choreography and editing and timing and everything that goes on in it. The big the train chase and fight and everything going on in the Orient Express.
That was really cool.
Another one. Fantastic. You know what, though? I'm going with the Rome car chase because I've seen so many car chases that don't do anything, that don't tell you what's going on, that don't do anything different. This one, I cannot imagine a movie topping this car chase in terms of car chase, pure car chase, in a long time. It does everything right. It does things differently. It uses comedy in fantastic ways. The way that the two, Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell, have to switch places as things are going, and that Atwell's character is not good at driving, and it incorporates her inability to drive well and on the level that she needs to for a chase into it. Everything about that thing, everything about that sequence, it woke me up, and I'm like, oh, this is what you can do with a car chase. You can do something different. You can do something fun with it. You can do something people have not seen before with a car chase. There's a moment of slapstick comedy where the car rotates around and suddenly things inside the car have changed in ways. There's no logic behind it. It's just old school, like Buster Keaton gag. You would see that in, a Chaplin film or something. I loved it. I loved that sequence. And I think, again, I know you guys are being skeptical. I think it is one of the best in the series. And that might be the top action sequence in that film. That's my number 3.
I'm not super skeptical on that point of view.
Okay, good.
There are hits and misses in the Mission Impossible series, and I thought that Dead Reckoning was one of the hits, was definitely one of the better ones. So
I'm not as high up on it, and I will say, if you'll remember, Matt, this is the only movie that I've ever seen, and I'll never see one again, in 4DX, where the chair moves you around. Mark, have you ever experienced this? So you can only imagine during that chase scene, I got thrown around like a rag doll. My back was hurting. I had to actually get up out of the chair at one point. It was so violent. Like, my God, I couldn't enjoy the great chase scene that Mark was highlighted as his third favorite scene. I was getting tossed around the theater.
At least it wasn't smell-o-vision,
I did like all the sound too inside that scene. I remember the cobblestone that they're on at certain points. Sound design, I remember actually in that scene also being quite impressive. So,
and it's a Fiat, right? They're in a Fiat, like a little yellow Fiat, which is ridiculous on its face. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, my number 3, I go to a franchise film also. 2 can play at this game, Mark. I go to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which we have not talked about here at the end of the year in any
I wonder
form.
why.
So let's highlight, and I rewatched this opening scene. It is the de-aged Indiana Jones train scene that opens up this film. And for people who loved Indiana Jones as a kid and wanted that nostalgia scoop of cereal, this was it. I mean, we got this younger Indiana Jones going on this train filled with Nazis, and all hell breaks loose because Toby Jones is also on the train, and we love Toby Jones. And at one point, this like large gun starts firing, and it gets stuck on automatic, and it just so happens as the train is turning on its track, so it starts actually just shooting all the Nazis who were trying to like climb up out of the train. Old school Indiana Jones technique here. It's over the top goofiness, but gave you that adventure feel. I think the movie overall is a success in the sense that it was much better than the Crystal Skull movie and was more in line with the 3 original Indiana Jones. And this scene, opening train scene with Indiana Jones, and when we finally see the Dial of the Destiny, at least half of it at that point, that's my number 3. Love this scene. Have you caught up with this yet, Matt?
Yeah, dude, I saw it. We reviewed it.
I wasn't sure if you saw this at the time or not. I couldn't remember.
I did. So, man, I don't know if I can totally get behind that pick. If I'm being honest, the movie is better than Crystal Skull, but that's not saying a whole hell of a lot. And that de-aging scene it's a little rough. I mean, yeah, the choreography is fun and it's classic Indiana Jones adventure, but when you see his face, it's a little off-putting, and then you hear that voice come out of his mouth, and they couldn't de-age his voice? I mean, come on. We got AI technology. Just de-age his damn voice. It didn't sound like Indiana Jones as I recall him. It sounded like old-ass Harrison Ford right now. It didn't work for me. Sorry,
shame.
Man.
It's the end of the war. He went through a lot up until that point.
That
explains
it. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was
I got to throw some logic in there.
Yeah.
It's fun sequence. That's like 30 minutes, that entire opening, isn't it?
It is. It's a long
The whole
opening.
DH thing?
Yeah.
It's long. Best part of the movie. I like the movie in general, but that opening 30 minutes. It does have that spirit of the old Spielberg ones in there.
Exactly, and that was what I think most everybody going to see Dial of Destiny wanted, and they gave it to us. I thought in a pretty good supply there.
See, I liked it almost like 100% more as soon as it went to Indiana Jones as an alcoholic in his underwear, living all by himself. I'm like, yeah, okay, yes, that's what I want to see.
This is a movie.
I like that too. I mean, you throw a guy who's stuck in the past and teaches history in the middle of the space race. That's a good premise for a movie. I wish it had followed up a bit more on that, of Indiana Jones trying to find his place as the future actually arrives in the world and nobody has any interest in history anymore. That's an interesting premise. I don't think it follows through on it, but I still like the film. It's fun.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. All right, into our twos we go, Matt.
Into our twos. I have a scene that I will say, as a seasoned moviegoer, it is hard to shock me. And this scene shocked me. Shocked me, Ryan.
I know where you're going.
Do you?
Well, maybe not. Are you going
No.
Saltburn?
No, I'm not going Saltburn.
Okay.
Are you talking about Barry Koenig's penis?
Mark just spit out his drink. There's a couple
That's
shocking
why I spit
moments
it
in
out.
there.
Yeah, I mean, they make such a big point about how he's so well endowed, and then he does the naked dance at the end. You're like, it's average. So
I've seen bigger.
yeah, I've seen bigger. No, but it is a naked scene. It is Jennifer Lawrence, the naked fight scene in No Hard Feelings. And if we're all sitting here being completely honest with ourselves, none of us saw this coming. It is the classic, the premise of the movie for jawheads who maybe hasn't seen it is she's desperate for money, so she gets hired by parents to date their sheltered son and bring him out of his shell by any means necessary. So she takes him skinny dipping, and some hooligans steal their clothes. She comes out. You think she's going to have like a frank discussion.
Damn hooligans.
And she beats the shit out of these people. There is a knockdown, dragged out brawl in the sand, and she's butt naked the whole time, and they go for it. I mean, we're talking full frontal Jennifer Lawrence in a fight scene. Wow, that was amazing. It is the only scene of the movie that I wanted to watch, of the year, rather, that I wanted to watch again immediately. And not for lurid reasons. I mean, Jennifer Lawrence is not hard on the eyes, but it's just so funny. It was hilarious. Great scene. Totally shocking. Caught me off guard. Definitely one I will remember.
No doubt. I think
Went full Eastern Promises. Sorry.
Eastern Promises.
Cut you off with trying to throw a joke in there. Sorry.
It's okay.
I love it. Eastern Promise joke in there. Only from Mark. But the great thing here is that you're right. I mean, it works because it's so shocking, because it's Jennifer Lawrence. We think she's at a star level that wouldn't quite go for this. That's the whole reason that this is works so well. It's like, no, they're really going to go for this. It's going to be Jennifer Lawrence and beating ass in the buff. All right, let's see it.
And it's a good fight too. It's like there's some like wrestling moves in there. She like drops an elbow on somebody. It's good. It's funny.
Good stuff. She did get nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Performance in a Comedy, which is just hilarious in its own right.
I hope she wins.
Well, Globes are still around. It's still funny.
All right, Mark, you're number two.
My number two. Ooh, I got a nice little pairing here of scenes, I guess. My number two is from the Zone of Interest, and it is a vision of the future. I don't want to give the specific context or what happens because I know the film just came out like last week in New York and LA, and it's going to be expanding over July or January. But there is a moment here where you are, after being caught up in the world of this commandant of Auschwitz and his life outside of the camp itself, and just see him go through his ordinary life, where he seems to be confronted with future of what will be remembered about the camp. And it just, I don't know how else to describe it. It's just, it takes you out of all of this horror that you've been hearing and that you know is happening. And it forces you to reckon with the direct consequences of everything that you haven't seen, but you know is happening. And it's really hard to talk about because it is sort of spoilerish territory. It's not something you just want to say, like, this is what happens and this is exactly what you see. Um, but man, that entire film is so great at just what it shows and what it conceals and how it shows and why it doesn't show you certain things. And so to have that moment at that specific time in the film to just remind you, like, you've been following this guy, but you know what's important? Everything else is going that we're confronting right now. Yeah, that's about all I want to say about it. But it is a fantastic scene in a great, great film that is, going to be really high on my top 10 list at the end of the year.
Sure. Caught this one back at the Toronto International Film Festival. And I always say I'm so happy to see movies like this in a festival setting sometimes because it's obviously very serious in nature. And I think being in that crowded movie theater and seeing it with hundreds of people, it elevates sometimes the emotion that you feel stirring inside you, and especially in scenes like Mark's highlighting there. It's like one of those moments where I think everybody in the theater is grasping it at the same exact time, and it just really moves you even that much more. Great film. Awesome. Now I got to follow that up, and now we got to cheer up here because we're going back to May, December. I said we would talk about this movie one more time, and maybe because I did watch it a second time, I wanted to pick something from it because watching it that second time, I was just blown away by so many scenes. And there's one scene, I almost was going to put it at my number one, and I call it the mirror scene, where Julianne Moore's character is bringing her daughter to get a dress. And the daughter is going in the dressing room and trying on dresses and then coming back out. And the scene is staged in front of one of those 3-panel mirrors. And the camera looks like, anyways, to be right behind Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman's characters, and then we're seeing their reflection in the main mirror. And you can also see on one of the side panel mirrors the second reflection of Natalie Portman's character. And that comes into play here because this is one of the moments where Natalie Portman starts to imitate everything that Julianne Moore's character is doing. And I'm talking about all her mannerisms, how her hands move, everything. And you can really see this as she's looking at Julianne Moore. And if you're looking in the second panel, you can see what's going on with her hands and the way she's like starting to contort her body to look and imitate more of Julianne Moore's character. And this is what she's there to do, is study this person. In the meantime, the daughter's coming out and Julianne Moore's talking about her arms. I mean, there's some odd comedy again with this movie where you don't know if you're supposed to laugh. It almost seems like it's insulting to a large degree. But this is the character that Julianne Moore plays. And to do this all in the mirror without really any edit at all, fantastic acting on display. That was my highlight in May, December. Great use of mirrors in that movie too.
I agree. That is a great scene from a movie that is climbing steadily on my list.
Yeah. The more you sit with it, right?
Yeah. The more you sit with it. And they use mirrors throughout the movie.
Tons.
Yeah. The makeup scene.
For sure. The makeup scene as well. Yeah. And I think that goes back to more or less the point of, that they're somewhat making, I don't want to say the whole entire thing, but again, it's sort of like, a reflection back at us. Like, why are we so taken by this story? What is it about us that makes us so intrigued on this story of a teacher raping a young kid and then eventually starting a family with them? So interesting film.
Yeah, what does our obsession with those stories say about us? What do we see in ourselves about those stories?
Yeah, so there's no doubt that's why
appeal.
The mirrors are there. But wonderful film. On Netflix, too. I like that it is on Netflix for a small, odd movie like this. This is one where, talking about the streamers, Mark, this is one where Todd Haynes, none of his movies get this much buzz on quote-unquote film Twitter or, the discourse going on that he has with May, December. And I love to see it because more people have seen this movie than probably all of his other ones combined, I bet.
Yeah, that's probably true.
All right. We are into our number ones. Matt, I don't know what you could have sitting as your number one scene.
Yeah, I actually am behind the scenes reordering my list as I go a little bit because I decided that I did want to stick 100% to films I didn't mention in my top 10. Because I could have gone somewhere with the holdovers, and I have some honorables, so we'll get to it. But I decided to surprise you, Ryan, and I have a Wes Anderson scene at number one on my list, and it was the only scene that I really liked. Listen, I like Wes Anderson less and less, and I know that is blasphemy to some, but I think he has gotten to the point where he's so up his own ass that he cannot see the forest for the trees anymore, and it's just whimsy for the sake of whimsy. And this was the case largely with Asteroid City, which I don't think works. But the alien landing, when the alien comes down, the best word to describe it really is droll. And that's a word that we don't use in everyday conversation, but it just fits a Wes Anderson scene like no other. It's droll. This little stop motion creature comes out, and his eyes, when he looks into the camera, these big saucer shaped eyes. It's freaking hilarious. I laughed out loud. I liked that scene. The rest of the movie around it, not as much. It has its moments, but Asteroid City, the alien, one of the more memorable. Like that's a freeze frame from a movie that could be the top of a top 10 list for scenes of the year. And you'd know, oh, that's the 2023 scenes of the year. It was that strong of an image.
I have rewatched, Matt, Asteroid City. Just did this last weekend. And I'll say this. It did. It really did. I definitely needed a second spin. I even think on the third is finally when I'm going to say, oh my God, this is a masterpiece. That's just how I am with Wes Anderson. It takes me a little while sometimes to realize that the true genius is there. It's a lot deeper of a film.
That's called Stockholm Syndrome. Okay.
I'm interested to hear, Mark, are you a fan of Asteroid City? I know some people love this film.
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's fun. It does have more recent Anderson vibes of trying to do a lot of things and not always accomplishing all of them. But I found the entire concept of having it be a play and the movie about the making of the play and tying it all in together to be like, what's the point of telling the story? Well, maybe there is no point because life itself doesn't really have a point. And so looking for the meaning of life within a play, it's a lot of burden on an artist, isn't it? It's fun. It's fun on that level, and I enjoyed it. That's Jeff Bloom as the alien, isn't
Right.
it?
I
Does he
believe
do
so.
the stop motion? Yeah.
Well, yeah, he
Which-
takes off his helmet
I
at one
saw-
point backstage. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. I forgot. That's it. I don't know if he does the actual motion reference, but it does feel as if it would be him, and that adds to the comedy of that.
Yeah, it's a great scene. I'm glad that came up, Matt.
It's a funny one.
Mark?
Okay, my turn. Get to lower the temperature of the room again. My number one scene is from Oppenheimer, and it is another scene about facing the consequences of actions that we don't see fully, and that is the big speech, specifically the one with the scream that silences everything and forces Robert Oppenheimer to consider exactly what the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki actually did to people. And so he is sitting there, riling up a crowd, telling them how great it is that the bomb was dropped, that we really showed the Japanese that we had superiority over them in terms of military prowess and all of that. And then you hear a scream and everything goes silent. And suddenly there are lights erupting. There are ashen bodies on the ground. And he is just realizing, oh, this is what I've done. This is the hell that I've unleashed upon the world. And that scene, I watched Oppenheimer again recently, just trying to get everything in my head organized about a top 10 list. That scene, it gave me chills again, and it actually got me teared up because it is just the full weight of that entire process of the Trinity Project, the Manhattan Project, and doing everything and just having it put right there in front of you without actually exploiting the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in any way. I do appreciate the fact that the film avoids doing that because you could show footage, but the film never does it. And instead it just visualizes it for you from Oppenheimer's perspective, that he knows that this is what he's done. It, yeah, it's a fantastic scene. I do think it's the best scene of the year easily because it just has that impact being right there in the film where you realize this is what the film is about. It's not just about the processes at work. It is that moral question. Should any of us have that level of power and be able to do that to other human beings? Yeah, it's a fantastic scene and a great, great film.
So we're just going to roll it right into my number one because this is where I went with a film that appeared on my top 10, and it's Oppenheimer also. And it more or less is the same scene because I think the Trinity test is what I actually wrote down is my number one. So it's the Trinity test from Oppenheimer. I recently rewatched it, and I'm always amazed when, you're watching a damn good film when everyone knows the history and how things turned out, and we know the result of the Trinity test. And yet, when we're watching Oppenheimer, Nolan is able to get us so tense and care and worry so much about what's going to happen with this Trinity test. They're going to actually try to detonate a bomb in the New Mexico desert there. That even watching it now a second time, I literally was like sitting straight up. I had to get up out of the chair a little bit and like watching it with my arms crossed, nervous as hell. And I know what's going to happen. What great filmmaking. And that use of the silence. I think the moment of the year for me, as far as watching movies, was at that press screen in Oppenheimer. And when that bomb sequence went off, and because it's so far away, you don't get the explosion sound right away. And he opts to just give you Oppenheimer's like breathing sound as he's like watching this explosion and that fire is going off. And I remember watching that in the theater, and that theater, there wasn't an open seat in there. And it was so silent. Everybody was just in awe of what they were watching and so into the movie. And you just don't get those moments too often. And then, of course, that rolls literally right into then Mark's scene. That sequence, I think, is what separates this movie from most movies ever made. This, I think, is an absolute masterpiece, Oppenheimer.
Yeah, dude. I mean, how do you argue against that? That was an amazing scene from an amazing slice of human history. They did it well. They didn't know if they were going to end the world with this device, but yet they pushed the button anyway. Fantastic filmmaking. Nolan at his best. I think it is a masterpiece.
And I do notice the scene that Mark's referring to also has these people like pounding their feet down on the like bleachers of the stands. I think that they're in. And that actually comes up a little bit earlier in the film. You start to hear it in the score of the film. You start to hear this, and that really builds to that scene that you're referring to, Mark, right after the Trinity test, where he has these visions of what's taken place and what he's created and ultimately destroyed. My God. Yeah. You just don't get films like that too often, I'm telling you. Whew.
The whole movie. Yeah.
Good stuff. So, honorable mentions, because I had so much fun putting the list together. I got a few to go over. I know Mark loves Poor Things, and the dance sequence in Poor Things with Mark Ruffalo and Emma Stone. I talked about it when I reviewed it on the show, Matt. It's phenomenal. I love a good dance sequence, and this one is hilarious and so well choreographed and shot. It's when the movie for me is really singing. It's at its top level during that moment. The Killer. I love the opening scene of The Killer and the assassination gone wrong. His narration and listening to the Smiths, hysterical. I'm a sucker for the big maestro church scene, also known as, hey, look, Bradley Cooper wants an Oscar. So that scene, yes, I know it's Oscar bait, but it's wonderful. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the creator has one of the better Radiohead moments where everything in its right place comes on, and it's during the invasion. and it's almost like a music video. And if you're a Radiohead fan like me, I was in pure heaven watching this on IMAX with that song playing. That's complete my jam. That's what I do after I have one too many. I get my Radiohead vinyl out and have my creator moment.
That is a great song. I'll go rapid fire on my honorables. This Eye from The Holdovers rather. That was great.
I love it.
We got to mention I'm Just Ken. Holy crap. What?
No, how didn't we talk about Barbie? Shame on us.
I left it off because it was on my top 10. But I'm Just Ken
You should have included it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, probably. I'm Just Ken is a great moment from film this year. And then I would say my last honorable is the head bashing scene in Talk to Me. So violent. So one of the best moments of horror this year. And that's with an Ari Aster movie. So, and there's a million from Beau's Afraid that I can mention. So I'm not even going to go there. There you go.
Mark?
Let's see. The basement in Eileen. That was the moment where I knew this film had me because it goes in a completely different direction than it had been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The epilogue of Killers of the Flower Moon.
You went
Easily.
for that, huh?
I did. That would be an easy honorable mention. I'm shocked it's actually not in the top 5 just because
It's a love it or hate it thing, I think.
It is. I loved it. And because it's that guy telling you what you're supposed to think from the movie. Like, he's earned that placement to be able to tell us what to think of this movie. I already mentioned Up on the Roof from May, December with the kid. There is a single cut at the very end of a one take at the end of Past Lives that shattered my heart. Where you see how these two characters, it recalls how they've gone separate ways in their lives. Mm-hmm. It is just a single cut after this one take of characters walking up and down a street. That moment just broke me. Mm-hmm. And the school newspaper interview in the teacher's lounge, where a group of students, a group of grade schoolers, confront the teacher at the heart of this scandal in the school about all the things that have been going on. And it just makes you encouraged that maybe there are kids out there who actually care about journalism and actually would ask the hard questions of a person of authority. It's a great scene in a really good movie that people will be able to see, hopefully, by the time this episode comes out. And definitely over the course of January.
One other one, Matt Damon in Air with his big speech to Michael Jordan. Again, one you got to go for. If you're a Jordan fan, people are going to absolutely love that scene.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those that's going to make a lot of grown men cry, much like, A Field of Dreams kind of does. I actually showed it to a couple of people today that hadn't seen the movie. I'm like, well, I'm doing some research for my favorite scenes, and I played it on YouTube, and the guy next to me was like, man, I'm choked up here watching this scene. He hadn't even seen the movie. He just saw this 2-minute bit of Matt Damon talking to Michael Jordan, and he was like, oh my God, it's too much for me.
That's a good one.
Jawheads, if we missed your favorite scene of 2023, shoot us an email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have our review of Aquaman. Plus, I'm taking Mark on in trivia. He's going down. Stick with us.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Even in a zombie apocalypse, humans are still a bunch of big softies. And the cast of 2009's Zombieland falls victim to the human condition just as much. Here, Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson meet up with none other than Emma Stone and her little sister Abigail Breslin for the first time, when the two sisters play with the boys' heartstrings and make a real good first impression.
Well, look, we don't know that there's definitely no cure, right?
You're just gutless. Give him the gun.
Wait. I'll do it.
You need some help?
Now that you mention it. We'll take your weapons, your car keys, your ammunition.
And if you got it, sugarless cup.
What the? Sparkling drinks, chocolate dandy, 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 dandy.
And we are back on Cinemajaw. Matt, before we get to that Aquaman review, I know I at least threw one item into the fish tank. KP, are you there?
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
Dujsik! Wake up! Wake up!
No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hello, thank you so much. We did. So, and the only one we had in here this week was Ryan's. And it is Bottom's streaming anywhere. And there's great news. It's all as usual with these kinds of ones. Like, unless there's a hoopla, it's great news or bad news. And it's that it is streaming. And if you have MGM Plus, it's on there. I don't know anybody personally who has MGM Plus.
I didn't even know there was a thing called MGM Plus.
Oh, there is.
I got Paramount Plus.
I don't have it either.
Can we chill out with the pluses, by the way? Like, it is the laziest, easiest streaming platform. Like, I would rather they just added Tube at the end of it. I would rather MGM Tube, which is arguably like one brain cell's worth of effort more. Just stop with the dip dang pluses. That's besides the point, because it's also on Fubo is the other thing. I don't know anybody personally, but I at least know more people have that than MGM Plus.
Right, and
That's
Fubo doesn't
one.
have
Yeah.
a plus after it. It's not Fubo Plus.
No. I mean, maybe there is like a Fubo Plus that like... Right, Plus should be like, I should get something extra. You get nothing extra with Disney Plus. You get nothing. You just get the service.
Right? No pluses.
There's no standard.
Unreal. That was everything?
That's all we got. Unless you have something else you want to throw in at me to get angry about.
That is
we could
it.
do a minus.
Jump back in that fish tank, KP.
Will do.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, Ryan. It's been a lifetime since 2018's Aquaman. So much has happened since the surprise hit in the otherwise lackluster DCEU. So freaking much. The Snyder Cut, Ezra Miller's disgrace, Dune, COVID-19, the collapse of the DCEU, Wonder Woman 1984, Amber Heard's very public trial with Johnny Depp. I could go on and on. The one seemingly steady thing is that Jason Momoa in the role of Aquaman has remained a bankable proposition. Oddly, it's perhaps become even more bankable as the supporting cast, with the exception of Heard, have seen their stars rise quite a bit, like Mr. Morrison. Here we are in 2023 in a post-superhero box office world, and Aquaman is diving back in, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water.
4 years ago, I was basically unemployed. A wanderer with no home. But now, I'm a husband and a father. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know how you did it, Pops.
My job was a little less stressful than yours.
Oh yeah, I finally got a job. I'm the king of Atlantis.
So here's the MacGuffin sauce. After failing to defeat Aquaman the first time, Black Manta wields the power of the mythic Black Trident to unleash an ancient and malevolent force. Hoping to end his reign of terror, Aquaman forges an unlikely alliance with the villain from the last movie, Patrick Wilson, his brother Orm, the former king of Atlantis, blah, blah, blah. They set aside their differences, join forces to protect the kingdom and save the world from irreversible destruction. And man, let me tell you guys straight off the bat, this thing plays out like a bad episode of Captain Planet. Not even a good episode of Captain Planet, a bad episode of Captain Planet. I get that this iteration of Aquaman here's another gripe, He's supposed to be like a down to earth regular guy who just happens to be a god. But man, oh man, the bro-ness of this movie made me feel like I had just played a round of darts and ping pong after drinking a Guinness out of a funnel. And that can be fun, but this was too brodacious even for me. Aquaman is an idiot. He's a big, dumb spring break moron. The rest of the cast is similarly handled, and they have a steaming pile of a script with each situation more stupid and CG'd than the next. If I had to pick a highlight, it would be Patrick Wilson, whose character has some of the better moments in both terms.
He could do no wrong.
He's got some of the better moments in both terms of action, story, and comedy. But sadly, it doesn't add up. It doesn't even come close. The plot is paper. The villain is rehashed. The comic relief is ham-fisted. And the CG is just terrible. This movie sucks.
So I'm about to shock the world here. I'm recommending Aquaman. I really dug this thing. I liked it a lot, actually.
Wow.
and let me tell you why, because it may come off as a head scratcher here. I like the fact that I knew that the DCEU was ending. I like that I didn't have to worry about that this was going to connect into anything. Just go in and just have fun. And I feel that's what James Wan ultimately went for it. Like, hey, let's just throw everything. Who cares how wild and stupid it really is? And I know I'm going to catch flack from people who are comic fans. I'm not. We're talking about a guy who's talking to fish. It's supposed to be kind of stupid in a way. I know, Matt, you're going to say, oh, he's a tactician. He's supposed to, this character's smart or some crap.
Aquaman is the butt of all the jokes in the...
Okay. So we're talking about a guy that talks to fishes and stuff. It's ridiculous already, just the premise. Go ahead and have fun with it. In 2 weeks, if you ask me, hey, what's the plot of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, I couldn't even tell you. I'm sure I'm going to forget about the plot. And that's not the reason why I ended up liking it. I felt this was like an amusement park ride. I thought the 3D was actually really fun. The underwater creatures were bizarre. At one point, there's like singing fish. There's like a band playing underwater. Just the most bizarre
that was the Little
crap.
Mermaid, dude. You're mixing it up.
There was music under the water, I'm telling you. And Patrick Wilson, I love this guy. He for some reason is taking this very seriously, and I like it even more that he is. I enjoyed Aquaman, believe it or not. Mark?
No, it's not good. What? Where's the fun? I mean, I want it to be stupid, but I also want it to be fun and silly. This movie takes itself so seriously, and it feels as if it is cut out a whole bunch of things. Main characters like Heard's character, who is Aquaman's wife and the mother of his child, and his mother, played by Nicole Kidman, feel like glorified cameos who show up in like 3 scenes apiece. Maybe Heard is just standing there reacting to things going on. That's it. That's all they could afford to put her into the screenplay for, apparently. Wilson is having fun. There are a couple of good moments with him, but I mean, I don't know what they're doing anymore, and I'm kind of glad the DCEU is finished. And I have a feeling a lot of the reason that this movie does feel so shortened and so hasty is that they probably cut out a lot of stuff that they didn't want to have to deal with, people having questions about later, perhaps, because it's just jumping all over the place in terms of the plot. It could have had some fun. The title is set up like one of those old serials, like what superheroes used to be. Like Batman and Superman started in old serials where it was like, a multi-part shorts across, a couple of weekends that people would be able to tell the story of Superman. You get that sense with And the Lost Kingdom, that's going to have some adventure and some fun to it. It doesn't. It's just them wandering around for something. I couldn't even tell you what they're supposed to be looking for. I've already forgotten what Orm and Aquaman are supposed to be looking for, except a very obvious climate change metaphor, which doesn't work because climate change is real. It's a real problem in the world. We don't need a comic book movie to tell us that some ancient evil is the one creating it. I think that goes against the entire idea of what it's trying to say. You know what? I really didn't like it. And I didn't like the first Aquaman. So, I mean, I'm kind of not in its boat to begin with, but I think this is even worse because it is so
it's definitely
generic by
worse.
the end. It's so generic. It's not doing any of the silly stuff in the background even anymore.
I liked Black Manta came back. I know this seems like it's a weak component here. Great character. Glad to see Black Manta back. And I like this whole, what was it called? The Black Trident? Dark Trident? It was cool. Everybody would get the power and they would sort of see this kingdom. And you know how I love underwater kingdoms, Matt. This is one of my favorite things.
I didn't know.
love underwater kingdoms.
Wait, hang on. I want to delve into that.
So I talked about when we saw the Little Mermaid, how much I like the shipwreck underneath the water. I remember commenting on that. And I knew right away, like, man, I'm going to like this because we got this like forgotten city under the water. I liked them trying to like open up the vault. I forget what they were trying to get inside the vault. As we said,
I forgot.
Yeah, I forget. I'm not going to say it's going to stick with me, but I remember liking the premise of being underwater and they got to open up this old vault and the cities down there. All that was pretty cool, you know. And then the guy at the end on the throne. That was all pretty neat. Again, it felt like a big ride that I had fun with.
Were you on something? Seriously?
Yeah, of course.
All right, so that explains it, folks. I mean, yeah, if you're high,
it's an Aquaman movie in 3D. You gotta be on something to enjoy it. I did.
Why was it in 3D, by the way? I thought we were done with 3D like 20 years ago.
Yeah, that caught me off guard.
15 years ago.
It must have caught the promotions company off guard too, because they didn't give any of us 3D glasses. And when the movie started, I was like, oh crap. And I had to run back down to the lobby to get my glasses. And I saw about 15 other critics running behind me.
Oh my goodness. I
man,
think
that's crazy.
I think what happened, Mark, is Avatar. Because Avatar, The Way of Water, obviously big scenes underwater that were 3D. Here they're making Aquaman, a lot of underwater scenes. Hey, let's turn this in, try to get a little cash grab and do the 3D again.
Somebody might have had an edible beforehand. It'll just be so much better.
Yeah, they must have been high when they wrote this thing.
Jaw-dropping moment. I got to highlight this one. This was a great chase scene. It might not have Tom Cruise in a Fiat, but this particular chase scene had all these like little creatures chasing after the two brothers. And they go past these basically praying mantis, not praying mantis. What are those? Venus flytrap kind of plants, but this is underwater. And these giant...
No, they were in a jungle at that.
They were in a jungle at that point? They weren't underwater?
Yeah, there's no water involved.
And these plants are going out and they're eating all these creatures behind them. Again, at that point, the 3D for me, it was working. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. So
I'm so disappointed in you. It's ridiculous.
Hey, I had fun.
I actually wrote down my jaw-dropping moment is just how terrible the movie is. But if I had to choose one, like earnestly, I would say that the robot, the Octobot fight scene with Orm with Patrick Wilson's character, actually, like for a moment, the movie felt like it had a gear to kick into. That was a thrilling sequence. That's it. I mean, and that is a real stretch.
One other highlight, because this might be Mark might want to dive deeper on this one as well. There's a character in here. Their sidekick is an octopus.
That was cool.
That was awesome. I loved it.
I wrote that down too.
Was an octopus was so cool. I don't know what you guys missed on this one, Mark.
Best octopus not played by Ed Harris. What's his name from Married with Children?
Ed O'Neill.
Ed O'Neill.
Yeah, but this is the best octopus movie since My Octopus Teacher.
I'm going to say it's not the best 8-legged creature in a movie this week. Because Jenna Malone plays a giant spider in Rebel Moon. Anyway, okay. Can I?
I also didn't hate Rebel Moon that much. So,
oh my god, how long did this edible last?
He's still high.
Some movie's like 5 hours. Jeez. My jaw-dropping moment, I just want to throw this out as a gag, which is that even with the last DCEU movie, they're still chasing Marvel because there is a direct reference to the MCU in this, where Aquaman refers to Orm as Loki. you guys can stop now. You're done. You don't need to chase Marvel anymore. Go do your own thing. You don't need to come up with your own Avengers after it's like 3 movies. It's okay, guys. Let it go. You lost. You can start over again. It's okay.
Indeed.
Movie poster quote, Matt?
Go to the community pool instead.
I went with...
Damn it.
I went with take the plunge and enjoy the silliness.
Ugh,
I
Ryan,
was going to make a joke about the public pool. Ryan said he was into underwater kingdoms. Like, there are public pools, right? I'm going to blow your mind right now.
oh, Ryan, how far you have fallen. I mean, this is a guy who banned Marvel films, refused to see the first Ant-Man. He's like, Ant-Man, that's silly. Here's a guy talking to fish. This movie is crap. I'm giving it 1.5 Jaws, and I feel like I'm being generous.
Mark?
1.5 for me, too. And I also feel quite generous about that.
So you can take Matt's 1.5, and you can take Mark's 1.5. You can add them up together, and you get Ride the Movie Guys 3 Jaws for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
You are literally high. You're literally
and then
high.
you divide it. And then you divide it by the other 2 critics on the show, and you get 1.5. And there we go. Boom.
Yep. All right. Jawheads, if you go see this one, do take something beforehand. You will enjoy it. And then write us an email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. There you go. That's our Aquaman take. Usually at this point, I pull out my trivia questions, but I guess I'm a contestant this week.
You're a contestant this week. I have the questions, and there are steals. Mark, you've been on the show. You know how this works. If you don't know the question, the other guy gets a chance at it. You're the guest, so you get to decide if you'd like to go first or defer.
I'm going to Belichick this. Defer.
Oof. You're going to defer. All right. Ryan, we start with you. John Waters recently agreed with Matt Kay that Beau's Afraid is the best movie of 2023. Oh, and I should mention again, we're playing 2023 movie trivia, so these are loosely associated with 2023. Aside from Hairspray and Serial Mom, he's directed about a dozen films. Name 3.
Oh, Jesus. I know I'm not going to get 3.
I'd be impressed if you can get 1.
I agree. I'd like to see Mark get 3. This is definitely a Matt K question.
Mark's counting on his fingers here, so I think he might have you here.
But he only had one finger up. He had one thumb. That was
no, but he's got a shit-eating grin.
I have one finger up. And wait, what was the 2 you said? You said Hairspray and Serial Mom, right?
I did. I took those 2 off the table because I thought it would be too easy.
Really wish you hadn't taken Serial Mom off. That feels a little too... Yeah, I know. That's a culty one. I thought all of them are culty ones. Okay, Pink Flamingos.
Bing.
What's the name of that one? Oh, no. Hang on, I can do this. I can't do this. Hang on. Oh, what is it? It's like it's a name, an initial, and an adjective. Yeah, I give up.
Nice.
Oh, wow, you guys. I think the one you were thinking of right there, Mark, is Cecil B. Demented.
That's it. Damn it.
We also would have taken Crybaby with Johnny Depp. Pecker with your boy Ryan.
Yep. What's his name?
Edward
Furlong.
Furlong. Yep. He also did Polyester, and then going back to the early days, Desperate Living, Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, to name a few. That's
tough first question. Let me
tell
number
you. 1.
I thought it was deferred.
I thought it was easy. That kicks it over to Mark for question number 2. In the movie Drive, Mark, Ryan Gosling's character wears a satin jacket that is emblazoned on the back with which animal? A scorpion, a tiger, or a winged snake?
Ooh, I'm glad you made a multiple choice because I was about to give the wrong answer. It's a scorpion.
Ding. It is a scorpion.
Wow.
I thought it was a tiger. And so when you said tiger among those multiple choice after saying scorpion, I'm like, oh, I misremembered that.
Ryan Gosling, that ties in because of Ken, obviously, in the Barbie movie. All right, it is 1-0, Ryan. Let's see if you can catch up here. Question number 3 is over to you. In Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, we are introduced to even more spider people. Aside from the first movie gang, Peter, Miles, Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Ham, Penny, and Spider-Gwen, can you name 2 spider people from the film? We'll accept their spider code names or their character names.
From the new one.
From the new one.
Gotcha. Oh, boy. There is the main spider guy that turns into the villain, but what is his name? Something like, oh, shit. Man.
On your top 10 list of one of the best movies of the year.
I know.
Can you remember the villain?
Oh, man. I don't know his name. I want to call him like something Spider-Man Amigo or something.
Spider-Man Amigo?
Something close to that.
That's like the Nintendo things that you scan on your controller.
Man. Oh, then you got, okay, how about the pregnant Spider-Woman? Can I go with her?
All right, I'll give it to you. Yes, that is Jessica
one.
Drew, Spider-Woman.
Yes, there we go. There's one. And then we will go with, oh my God, that guy's name. It's going to absolutely kill me. The main villain, the guy that, but I don't know his name for sure. It's something like, I don't know.
Wow.
Mark, what was
I
that
mean, you
one?
could have also said Spider-Punk. I'm shocked you didn't.
Whoa.
Can I get?
Sorry.
I was going to say Spider-Punk.
I knew you were. Come on, that's an easy one. You got another one, Mark?
Spider-Man 2099.
Give it to him.
I know he has an actual name, but that's what the influence is.
His actual name is Miguel O'Hara.
O'Hara, yes. That's who I was trying to think of, and then I could not think of anything else after not getting that.
Apologies for
Miguel
jumping the gun
O'Hara.
there on you, Mark.
Yeah.
That's okay.
2-0, Mark.
All right. And this one is 2-0 over to Mark. I'm not used to being the host here, so Ryan, do you like make tally marks, or how do you keep up with the score? Just in your head, huh?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
With their fingers.
All right, Mark. Aside from Megan, there was one other horror movie in 2023 about robotic playthings coming to life to murder people. Name it.
I'm not talking about the creator, I'm assuming, because those are not technically playthings. Oh, jeez. Robotic playthings. Why is this so... Five Nights at Freddy's.
Bing. 3-0, I believe the score is.
It is.
And that brings us back to Ryan. All right, Ryan, I think you can get this one. In the original... Actually, this one's hard as shit. In the original 1954 Japanese film Godzilla, what real-life event partially inspired the creation of the iconic monster?
So I could just go...
This is some deep inside baseball, right? Let's see if you know this.
So I could just go with the atomic bomb on this one?
If you think that's the answer?
That's what I'd go with.
Mark Dujsik, do you know the answer to this question?
Is it okay if I don't remember the specific name of the fishing vessel that was affected by the nuclear tests that that created radiation poisoning and a bunch of fishermen off the coast of Japan? Is that okay if I don't know the name of the ship?
I would say yes, because that's
Okay,
correct.
Cool.
Give him a bell. I mean, this is some really esoteric stuff. It was the Lucky Dragon 5 incident, which is a Japanese fishing boat was exposed to fallout after a United States hydrogen bomb test at the Bikini Atoll in 1954.
I love the original Godzilla. I love it so much.
What's the score now?
4-0.
4-0. It's a total blowout at this point.
It is.
This question is over to Mark. Mark, in Mutant Mayhem, the TMNT movie we got this year, we got an amazing score from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. The duo have done many scores. Can you name 3 other films.
Yes, and I don't want to give away too much. Oh no, wait, hang on a second. I don't want to name them immediately because then I give Rye 2 right off the bat.
I know. This is what I always do in trivia.
Hang on. I know there's a weird one that I can't think of. Oh no, this isn't fair because I can name 2. Oh, okay. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo,
Yep.
Soul, and
Yep.
The Social Network.
Boom. Nails
Wow.
it. Ryan, you want to save face and name one more?
Oh man, what's funny is I started to name one and I was going with Johnny Greenwood scores because I was going to go with that.
That's what I was going to say. There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, I was going to go with what was that one where he goes to get the girl who was kidnapped? But that's Johnny Greenwood, where Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, what is that called?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You love that movie,
I know
Matt.
it's
It's called
so
like.
good.
I'm way out on
You
a
were
tangent
never
here.
really here.
Oh, yeah. Was that him? I
But
don't know.
But that was actually Greenwood and not them.
Right.
So give me another one. What else did they do?
He did Empire of Light, Bones and All, Before the Flood, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, mid-90s, Mank.
Mank, huh?
TMNT, Soul, and Social Network. Yeah, among others. But those are the big heavy hitters.
I saw that Soul was going to get re-released in the theaters, or I should say released in theaters because it came out during the pandemic. I was actually thinking of going to the theater to see it.
Yeah, I saw that too. Maybe. Yeah,
Yeah, they're doing that, Turning Red, and Luca over the course of like 3 months, I think.
Yep.
Okay, so the score is still is it 5-0 now?
5-0 now at this point. It's a complete and utter blowout.
Ryan, let's see if you can at least get on the board here. I believe you get the next. No, you
I
just
believe it's to Mark.
yeah. It's
Oh
to
no,
Mark.
no, it is to me
it's-
because that was
Yeah.
straight up to Mark. Okay,
That was straight up to Mark. All right, Ryan. Before winning the Academy Award for Best Actor in his role in The Joker, Joaquin Phoenix was nominated for the same award 3 times. Can you name at least 2 movies for which he received the previous nominations?
all right. We're gonna go with Gladiator,
Ding.
and we will go with Joaquin Phoenix in. He had 3 other nominations besides Joker. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And I got to name 2 of them. God, I didn't know he had that many.
Yeah, you know what? I think Joker is counted in those 3. So there's 3 total.
Okay, so there's only two
Two
other
others.
nominations.
Can you name them?
Okay, so one of them was Gladiator.
You got that one.
Yep.
I'll give you a little hint. Want to get you on the board here. Came out 5 years later, after Gladiator.
Boy, that's some hint. All right, so we're in the early 2000s, I believe. Then at that point, that was right around 2000. So 2005 would have been. What was Joaquin Phoenix doing in 2005? I know it wasn't Ladder 49.
He's wearing black.
Walk the line. Thank you.
All right. That was too good a hint. I was actually trying to think of a hint that doesn't just give it away, you know?
Sure.
All right, Ryan, you're on the board. This next question is over to Mark, and it is the last question, which I believe makes you the winner, but just add insult to injury here. Ridley Scott was back at it this year with Napoleon, but in his film The Martian, which actor played the role of NASA's director of the Mars missions, Teddy Sanders?
Ooh. Does this have any 2023 connections specifically or not?
Well,
just because
Ridley Scott had a movie this year.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
see.
The actor. Does the actor have a 2023 connection, like specifically that would come
Not
to
to-
mind? No. Okay. All right.
Nothing
Okay.
springs to my mind immediately.
Okay. The director of it. This kind of cast is so loaded. There are so many people. There are so many people, and I am going to throw out the name Chiwetel Ejiofor. No, okay.
Sorry,
He's
that's
in
wrong.
that though, right?
I think
believe
so.
he is.
All
I
right,
believe he is.
Okay.
let's see if Ryan can.
Oh, now I
get
know
this
who it
one.
is. Crap.
Man, I mean, I think I'm completely wrong here. I don't even remember this guy being in it, but is it Alan Arkin?
No. Sorry, guys.
It's Jeff Daniels, isn't it?
It is Jeff Daniels. Yes.
Daniels.
Well done. Well done. It did not come down to a tie. This was a decisive victory for Mark. Virtual handshake, you guys. Well done. But if it did come down to a tie, we do a jawbreaker. And the jawbreaker this week is, how old is Barbie? Closest to wins. And I am talking about the toy from Mattel. How old is Barbie? Ryan, since you lost, we'll let you guess first. What do you think?
All right. So
he's doing the mental gymnastics right now. You could see the steam coming out of his ears.
I'll say...
You know that meme where all the math floats at the camera coming out of somebody's head? That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of wheels turning, and they're moving slow. Now I'm thinking, like, why did I take edibles for both Aquaman and Rebel Moon? Damn, it was a rough week. I'm going to go with 68 years old.
68. We lock Ryan in at that guess, 68.
Don't tell me you were going to say that, Mark.
I was literally going to say 68 because my actual math, and which is what I'm going to say, is 69, but I didn't want to say the number just because, so I was going to take a year off. So I'm going to go with 69.
69? We'll give that one to Rye the Movie Guy.
Nice.
She is 64 years old. The toy originally came out in 1959.
Well, my math, the way I went about it, is it's based on the lady in the movie that Margot Robbie sees when she turns on the bench, which is another wonderful scene where she says, "You're beautiful." And she's like, "I know it." And then I started thinking, all right, well, somewhere around here, she looked like she was around, you know.
Yeah, she was waitressing in Cheers in 1985.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, trying to figure it all out. And I was like, all right, it's got to be around 65 to 70 years old. So
yeah, right before the 60s. So, yeah, 1959. Good job, you guys. That was
stuff.
fun. It was fun
Well played,
hosting
Mark.
trivia.
I'll tell you, your questions are a lot harder than, you know, I always start them off with super easy so everybody's comfortable. Where the hell are we on question one?
hey.
Holy crap.
It's different tastes. I felt Matt's were actually pretty easy. But Matt and I, in many ways, have like the same brain. So
yeah, that John Waters
that is
one.
Unfortunate.
Man.
Yeah.
You need to
I
watch
should
some of
have
those.
gotten that.
We
I'm
glossed
embarrassed.
over my shit-eating grin bit for the John Waters, and that's fine. I'm not even angry.
I love John Waters.
Brings us to the end of a great Jaw. First and foremost, got to thank our guest, Mark. Thanks for coming on the Jaw.
Thanks for having me again. It's always fun.
We also got to thank KP, editor, producer.
Yes, of course. Always happy to. And okay, can we spoil some? I know this is our last of 2023. One, great 2023. All three of you. I love you all. Can we give the Jawheads a little exciting bit for 2024, something to look forward to?
Please.
And it's that on February 24th at Reggie's, there's another Pancakes and Booze. So,
well, dude,
February 24th.
Do explain what that is.
Oh, right. There's probably, it's the art show that I always do. It's a great time.
It is.
It's always so much fun.
Pancakes and booze.
And it's not just me. Yeah, there's free food and alcohol and art. The art is not free, but the food and alcohol. Well, the alcohol's not either. The food is.
The pancakes are
Actually,
free.
you got to pay for everything, but it's a hell of a good time.
But there's a cover charge. But anyways, I went out to it last time KP was showcasing art, and it was phenomenal. So, 4 Jaws from Ride the Movie Guy.
I'm going to try to make it to this one because I missed the last one. What day did you...
And there's only one. Last time there was 2 days. There's only one for this one.
Okay. Well, we'll talk after the show and we'll get it on the calendar.
Absolutely.
I also want to mention our next show will not be until we're recording it on the 11th, unless I'm mistaken. So it'll come out right around Martin Luther King Day, and it should be another wrap up with Katie Glidewell talking about the best female performances. I think that's what we're doing next.
Yes. Sounds pretty good.
We should thank the Patreons too, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thanks to the Patreons. Thanks for supporting the show. If you want to join us over there, go over to patreon.com/cinemajaw. We're doing hosts of extra things, such as the Movie Roundup podcast, where we get to some reviews that we can't get to on the main podcast here. So thank you for the Patreons that support us already, and thank you to the future Patreons that'll jump over there and support us in the near future.
Thanks to everybody.
Absolutely. If you can't support us that way, do rate us anywhere you're listening to this podcast. Give us a star rating. Leave us a review. Those things do help attract new listeners. Until next week, I'm Rye the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt Kay.
And keep on jawing about the movies.